Why should customers choose your business over alternative solutions? Are you honestly able to answer that question under 30 seconds? If not, fear not. Today we will discuss in this video how having a very clear value proposition or a value proposition statement will help you convince customers that your solution is the best for their business needs. And to do that, we will continue by reviewing the steps in our 24 steps discipline entrepreneurship by looking at step 7 and step 8. Step 7, which is the high level product specification, and step number 8, which is quantifying your value proposition. So we'll review those, and I promise, stick around. If you had any doubt on how to convince customers that your solution is the best fit for them, these 2 steps will finally allow you to do that. So without a doubt, customers will know that, you know what, your business solution is the only one. So let's fasten our seatbelts, let's dive in, and let's get to work. All right, Business BPAC Nation, it's been a while since we have been together on this, what we call now the weekend business school, right? Where we review some business concepts in this show, which is the Business BPAC, where we talk business. Why do we talk business? Because, well, in our march towards addressing some of the wealth creation inequality, we believe that business and entrepreneurship are tremendous tools to allow our communities to bridge the gap in terms of the wealth gap that we've seen within the global PAC communities. But unfortunately, it is a fact that we see our communities tend to be left a little behind. And so the goal here is to continuously bring you tools that will allow you to implement those in your life so that you can take part into these entrepreneurship tools and be able to, create fantastic businesses and create wealth in the long term. And so if you're new to this concept, which is the Business BPAC, we started a while ago. So we've been going through the 24 steps entrepreneurship of discipline entrepreneurship, which is what you have here. This is a book that I myself went through, as I mentioned before, through business school. It's these are steps that try to turn entrepreneurship into a scientific method, right? Into an academic process, but into a systematic approach, into a framework. Many people will tell you that entrepreneurship is not an exact science, which is true. There's many different ways to get there. Nevertheless, those who fail to plan to fail. And so, whereas a plan will not guarantee success into your business, the one thing you know for a fact that I can guarantee is that by following the framework that are communicated in this book, in this methodology, if you have an idea in your mind, that idea will turn into at least a business, and very quickly you'll be able to determine whether or not this is a scalable business or not. And so just very quickly before we begin covering the topics that we have, so the book that I just showed you, so this book, again, the 24 steps to discipline entrepreneurship, which are also right here on the screen, as you can see. The version that I'm using is the one on the top here, which is a 2013 version that, again, I went through myself as I went through business school. And so the picture that you see on the bottom here is the updated version. And so, as I mentioned when I first started this series, I highly recommend you getting these books so that we go through the steps together. Then during the week or in between shows, you're able to try those. And then on the following show, we can cover new steps. That will certainly guarantee that by the time you're done with these 24 steps, again, I kid you not, these steps work. It is not by accident that these steps are taught in some of the best business schools in the world. That is not by accident. That is because these steps have been demonstrated to work, whether it's in the Booth School in Chicago, whether it's MIT, Rice University, the school where I went to myself. These steps, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, work. They're not the easiest steps, but as everything else in life, nothing great is easy, right? You need a bit of a commitment, but if you commit to this, if you're one of those people who have an idea, you're not very sure on how to turn that idea into a business, this framework is for you. I did it. That's how I turned ideas that we had in business school into a company. You can do the same thing. And so essentially, all right, that's that. All right. So, and by the way, this is Tony Fumusimba Kwamba Mangumbo. All right, let's get straight into it. So, what exactly will we be doing today? So, we'll do two steps. All right. The first one is essentially having a high level product specification. So, what exactly are we talking about here? What is this high level product specification? Essentially, we're now step 7. We've gone so far into the beginning. We started step 1, 2, and so on. We're in step 7 now. But if you've been following this series, until this point, we have not talked about your product, right? We've talked about the customer. We've done a market segmentation. We've identified a beachhead market. We've created a user profile. We've done a full cycle use case. So we haven't talked about the product. So today, finally, with this step, we're getting to that point where now we can start talking about the product. And by the way, some people might think that this is, why are you waiting until so far into the process to start designing your product or service? Because after all, if you have a business, you have to be selling something, right? You're designing something that addresses a customer need. That is true. Nevertheless, let me take down the picture here, which I forgot to take down. Okay, the picture has been taken down. Yeah, so it is not by accident that we waited for this long, because here's the deal. You want your product to be customer centric, which is why as we begin this framework, it focuses on the customer first. Understand your customer's pain point, understand your customer's need, and then you start catering your product or your service around the customer need, not the other way around, which would be you build something and then you try to shove it into customers' market, so to speak. It's kind of like that old ideology, right? That says build it and they will come. Well, that does not always work. It is more efficient, and especially when you have less resources, you want to be focused. It is more efficient to fully understand the customer's need and pain point, and then start creating your pilot product around that. And then you can quickly start testing if it's the right one, and then you can iterate, right? Change as you go forward. So essentially, step number 7, the high level product specification, is all about that. All right. So it's about, in a sense, really just building a visual representation of your product. That's the name of the game, because at this point, you're still a bit fuzzy, right? You still don't have all the details of your product. Obviously, you don't have all of the details of your, even if you have your prototype, it's not fully rendered, right? You still trying to figure out exactly what the product will look like in terms of the details. However, you should have now a clear idea in terms of like the big lines, right, of what the product is, or at least what it should do and how it should serve the customer's need. So that is what this step is about. And to further clarify that, you actually want to create a brochure. That's a recommendation. You do not have to do it, but a brochure is very helpful at this point, because, and you have so much data, presumably because you've gone through all the steps we've done before, should now allow you to be in a situation where you are able to produce a brochure that encapsulates all that information, and then you can put it in a visual format, and you can even actually start sharing it with some of the people that you interviewed, right? So some of the potential customers, because that allows them to also now have a better visual idea of what it is that you're telling them. And then you can also get fantastic feedback. So a brochure is what you want to do with this step. It is, you don't have to make it that complicated again. Just focus on 2 main things in the brochure. All right. 1 is what your product is, and 2, how the product benefits the customer. Again, you want to focus on what the product is. 2, you want to focus on how the product benefits the customer. those two angles in a brochure, it can be a one pager, it can be a folded brochure, but it's an important step. But those two things will accomplish two things. As I said, one, it will help your potential customers have a great visual representation of what it is that you're offering and then provide you feedback. But two, it also allows you, your co-founders, and if you have a team at this point, to really also have a very clear picture, right? A clear, a visual understanding of what it is that we're trying to build. So do not underestimate this step. It is a necessary step on our way towards eventually getting to the 24 steps. So if you need a bit of a reminder here of where we are in terms of the steps, remember, these are this was all the listing, right? In terms of all the steps that we have here. All the steps we did before were who is your customer. So now our step number 7 is in what can you do for your customer. So we're in the second phase on our way towards the 24 steps. We still have a bit of way to go, but it is worth it. And here's a roadmap if you need to see it. And so we started at 1, then step 2, 3, 4, 5. We jumped to step number 9, and we did 6 a couple weeks ago. And today we're doing 7 and 8. So this is our roadmap. Stick with it. By the time you get to step number 24, my promise to you has not changed. I mean, I guarantee these steps, again, once you get there, that idea that you had in your head that you weren't really sure on how to turn that into a business, these steps will help you do that. They will help you do that. I've done it. Countless people have done it. You can do that as well. All right. So that's step number 7, folks. It's simple enough. All right. Simple enough. The step again is called high level product specification. So it means just a visual representation of your product, finally. And secondly, it allows you to further clarify your product offering, and you want to do it with a brochure. That's the best way to go about it. You can do diagrams and things of that nature, within your team, but to communicate with the outside potential customers, you're not selling a product yet. Let's make that clear, okay? At this stage, it's still not about selling the product. You're not at that stage yet. We're still designing the offering. However, we've done your interview, we've spoken to customers, so now we present that visual representation. They view it, they provide you feedback, and it allows you to get to the next step until eventually we have what's called an MVP, which is a minimal viable product. Some people like to call it MVBP. So M as in Mike, V as in Victor, B as in Bravo, and P as in Paul, which means minimal viable business product, MVBP. So yeah, eventually you'll get there, and that's when now we start having buying customers. Because if you remember the question I asked the very first or the second show, when do you know that you have a business? Do you remember that answer? When do you know that you have a business? When you have a paying customer. So eventually this all should lead us there, because spreadsheets, beautiful spreadsheet on your screen, beautiful diagrams, great imagination in your brain, all of that is not a business. All right, it becomes a business once you finally have a paying customer. And then obviously the next step is now scaling that. The more you can duplicate that, the more you can have repeat customers, the more you grow your business. We've talked about it in the past. So so again, this step is just another one on the way to step number 24. All right, folks, so that's it. That's simple enough, right? Step number 7 is really, there's not much more to say with it. So create a brochure. On your brochure, focus on the what your product is and how your product benefits customers. There you have it. All right, now we're moving on to step number 8, which is a big one. This one is quantifying our value proposition. Like, this is, again, a big step. How did I start the introduction? Remember, I asked you, why should customers choose your business over alternative solutions? Like, why? This really means you need to have a certain value that is very clear, all right, So the customer needs to be absolutely convinced that your product provides a value that is so good in addressing their need that they want to pay you for it as opposed to competition, the alternative. So it is all based on that value proposition. So being able to answer that question, why should customers choose your business over alternative solution, is absolutely critical. But to get there, there is quite a framework. All right, so I'm going to project some things here to help you visualize this step, because you cannot quantify this if you do not have, first of all, a value proposition statement. So you need to arrive at a value proposition statement first of all. And then when you have that value proposition statement, which considers values from the viewpoint of the customer, not your viewpoint, from the viewpoint of the customer. So once you have that value proposition statement, then you can move on to quantifying the value proposition. So again, so that it is clear without a doubt in your customer's mind that, you know what, you created so much value for them that they will choose your product over the alternative, solutions. Okay, again, how do we do that? So let me figure out how to project on the screen here, so you can see exactly what we will do here. So let's project this. Are you guys able to see on the screen? Let me see. No, it's not projecting yet. Let me see here. Okay, so we need to give me a second. Need to. Okay, so I believe this is it. Yes. Okay. So I believe you should be able to see on the screen now. Yes. All right. Again, what are we moving on to now? Step number 8 is about quantifying your value proposition. As a matter of fact, before we do this thing on the, as I walk you through the step on how to eventually quantify your value proposition, there's an interesting quote. If you have the book, it's essentially at the beginning of step number 8. I just love this quote. The quote actually says, it says the following, okay? When you can measure what you are speaking about and express it in numbers, you know something about it, okay? But when you cannot measure it, your knowledge is of a meager and unsatisfactory kind. Let me just repeat that quote in case you didn't get it or I didn't read it properly. So it goes like this. When you can measure what you're speaking about and express it in numbers, you know something about it. But when you cannot measure it, ... your knowledge is of meager and unsatisfactory kind. So in other words, being able to express what you're speaking about in number just has a very powerful connotation, right? And just further demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. And this is a quote by Lord Kelvin. This quote is at the beginning of step number 8. Now, it's not put there by accident. It is put there because this is what this is all about. You can tell customers, oh, my product is the most awesome product in the world. It is the best, blah, 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 blah. Sure. How can you demonstrate that? You need to arrive at the number. So now, as you see on the screen here, what do we have here? Let me see. Okay, let me just correct this quickly for you. Okay. So step number 1, as you see, you have to go through it gradually all the way. There's 4 steps until the quantifying the value proposition is number 4. You need to start by having what's called a customer profile. Then you have a value map. Then you have a value proposition statement. And then from that statement comes the quantifying the value proposition. It will make sense. Trust me. So that first step, the customer profile, is essentially you have all the data. Like by now, step number 8, like all this stuff is stuff you already have. It's just a matter of mapping it and organizing the information you already have. There's no additional research involved here. This is just organizing what you already have once again. So it should be simple enough, really, when you do it. So that customer profile, again, is taking all the information that you have, just organizing who your customer is. All right. So, and that entails those bullet points underneath it. As you can see here, who your customer is, the jobs to be done. All right. What job needs to be done? And then you have which pains are we solving? So we did that when we did our market segmentation and so on. So now you put it here. The next bullet, what gains is the customer getting from your solution? All right. When you're done with the profile, the customer profile, you now move into on the value side, right? So you have a customer, you have his profile. Now, opposite the customer, you have the value. Now, the value needs to mesh, right? Need to match the customer profile. So now that's what you do. Again, you have the profile. Now, let's look at it now on the value side, which is on the other side of the customer, and figure out if it actually matches who our customer is. So on the value, you should now just detail what product and service you're offering, which pains is your product relieving, and which gains is your product creating. And it has to match, because the product here and service has to match the jobs to be done. Okay? The pain relievers that your product relieves has to match the customer pain. And the gain creator, like what the gains that your product is creating, have to match the customers, what they want to gain, right? Goes without saying. So now once you have this done, you now move on to step number 3, which is now putting all of that into a statement. And that statement is what will help you answer that question that I began the show with. When I asked you, how can you be sure that your product is the best for the customers, or why should customers choose your product as opposed to any other alternative? You answer that with this value proposition statement. This is essentially a statement that proves your value proposition. And you should be able to do it under really 20 seconds. 30 seconds is too long. This is a sentence. So in 20 seconds or so, you've given this statement. 20 seconds is even long. Let's say 10 to 20 seconds. So, and then when you have that value proposition statement, which tells the customers without a doubt that your product is the one that creates the right value for them, and then you'll go to step number 4, which is now quantifying. So putting numbers behind this value proposition statement. Sounds good? If you have any question about this, as I've always said, don't hesitate to send comments, send message, send emails during the week. I'll be more than happy to answer. You can find the email when you go on the YouTube page, right? You click on the about of the website. You'll be able to see the email address. So just send and I'll answer that. All right. So let's see what it looks at. That's the application. Because one thing with this, my promise to you with this series of business talks and so on, was not to make it too theoretical. The theory is needed, but always try to show you the application of it. Whether it's what we did as we went through the exercise, but also how I use it to build my own company, which ended up being a renewable energy company. All right, so the application here. So let's see how this customer profile, all right, step number 1, customer profile. Let's see how the value map, and let's see how the value proposition statement actually would be. How would you apply that? And we'll essentially just fill in those bullet points. All right, so let's start with customer profile, which is 1. This was an exercise where we did, so we created a company that would use algae, to treat oil field water, right? So produced water from oil field site. And so customer profile, who's the customer? Onshore independent oil and gas producers. Simple enough. In your case, whatever business it is, who's the customer? You have the information from the verticals that we created, market segmentation. and your beachhead market, you already have that data, right, from the previous step. So you know who your customer is, you put it down. The jobs to be done. In this case, what we did was two main things: reduce the cost of disposing of oil field water, wastewater, but also eliminating trucking from oil field wastewater, because on sites where you have, on drilling sites and so on, you on fracking sites, you produce so much produced water, right? And so there's a big cost involved in trucking that water into different site to either inject it into disposal wells that are built in the ground, but those wells end up creating earthquake and environmental problems, or you send it to a site where a treatment site where the water can be treated. So jobs to be done, again: reduce the cost of disposing and eliminating trucking because we have algae. Pain. The pain point that the customer had, I'm not going to read all of them, it's a lot, but you have a lot of water being created, massive volumes. There's a high cost of trucking. So, you list it. The same with your business, whatever business you have, you list the pain, right? Pain point that the customer has. All right, what are the gains that the customers are looking for? Again, you should have that information based on all the research, the extensive research we did in the previous steps. The gain for us here was reducing the cost, was eliminating trucking, improving public relations, because there's environmental issues with disposal wells where people are saying it's creating earthquake and all kind of issues. All right. So now we are done with the profile. Now step number 2. Now we move on into what? Into the value map. Remember, we had one customer profile. Okay. Oops. One customer profile. 2, value map, and 3, value proposition statement. All right, so now let's go to step number 2. We're done with the customer profile. Let's go to the value map. Now remember, the value map is where you list the values and you map them out and make sure they match your customer profile. Because what you're building is centered around the customer, not you, but the customer's need. Because you're not the one who will pay for your service and product, the customer will. So you better make sure that your product has value that matches what the customer needs, right? All right, so in this case, our value map was what is the product and service? For us, it was an algae growing system, all right? Photobioreactors. So, and which pain were we relieving? It's essentially have all this pain point, eliminating off-site trucking, eliminating injection in wastewater disposal wells, and so on. Which gains were our product creating? So you allow the wastewater to be treated on site. You minimize the management cost for oil and gas companies, and so on and so forth. All right, so now you have your customer profile, you have your value map, which you took all your value, your benefits, and you match them to the customer. Now you take all of that stuff, and now you now create what's called a value proposition statement, which is a statement. It's a sentence that has to encapsulate all that value. And what does it look like? This is it here. The value proposition statement. Okay. So it has 5. There's many ways you can go about it. Here we propose this template. All right. 1, you have your target. So you have the need, the solution, the benefit, and the alternative. So the target, you start with the sentence that says 4. So what is it? It is 4 onshore independent oil and gas producers. Who needs it? It's oil and gas producers who want to reduce the cost of disposing oil field water and eliminating trucking, blah, blah, blah. So what is our solution? So we offer algae growing systems. So photobioreactors. What benefits? Our solution allows oil and gas producers to treat oil field wastewater on their site. Alternative, what are the competitors offering that why are we even better? Because the others offer costly solutions that truck the water off site and create environmental issues with waste water disposal wells. All right. So I hate you list it that way, and then now you turn this into a sentence. Here's how it would go. You would essentially say, for onshore oil and gas producers who like these things, like for who, you essentially just put it in the beginning of the sentence, and then you see how it sounds. All right. So again, we start with the for. For onshore independent oil and gas producers who want to reduce the cost of disposing oilfield wastewater and eliminating trucking of oilfield wastewater to offsite disposal wells, we offer an algae growing system, also called photobioreactors, that will allow oil and gas producers to treat oilfield wastewater on their site, unlike other costly solutions that truck water offsite and create environmental issues by injecting wastewater in disposal wells. As simple as that. And then you say the sentence and you see how it sounds like. You can tweak, a bit of the grammar here and there, but this is essentially your value proposition statement. All right. So essentially, if somebody was to ask you and say this was your business, and it's all right, so you're offering a solution, you're an oil and gas service to independent oil and gas producers, because again, our customers are onshore independent oil and gas producers. Somebody might ask you, why should independent onshore, not offshore, but onshore oil and gas producers choose your solution over the alternative? Is your solution the best for them? Well, I would answer just by saying this. Well, why should they use us? Well, for actually the independent oil and gas producers who want to reduce the cost of disposing the oilfield wastewater and eliminating environmental concerns, because those are the ones we target. Guess what? Our solution is an algae growing system, photobioreactors, that will allow these producers to treat their oilfield on site, unlike those other solutions that they're using that force them to truck the water off site, which is very costly and creates so many environmental issues by injecting the wastewater in disposal wells. Our solution is different. It's treated on site. So, okay. And then now you're not done. So now that I've said the statement, remember the last step? The last step was the title of step number 8, which was what? Quantifying your value proposition. So this is fine and dandy, right? We have made a statement that says that we're fantastic, that we're great. Now we need to quantify that. Figure out how this statement, you can turn it into a number. So for us in this case, it was pretty straightforward, right? Because essentially we came up to a number where, if we eliminated, the trucking of the water offsite, well, the oil and gas companies would save between $1 to $5 per barrel per day. All right. $1 to $5 of cost reduction per barrel, which is very significant. Multiply that times the amount of barrels that are produced by day. Just to kind of give you an image here, this is just a number that I'll put for the sake of exercise. You have 1,000 barrels that you produce per day, which is absolutely nothing. Guess what? You saved $1,000 per day, between $1,000 to $5,000 per day. That's we've quantified it. But also by reselling the water, because here's the other thing. And we put here that our customers would be both sellers, providers of dirty water, but also buyer of clean water. Because remember, as they go through the drilling operation, there's so much water that is used. They're producing, enormous volume of water. Then we, instead of taking the water offsite. We take the water, so they provide us the water. And guess what? We turn around and buy the water. You know what? By that time, when we did this exercise, companies were paying about 20 cents per barrel of clean water. So here, imagine, so they produce their own dirty water. We treat it. So we've eliminated the cost of them taking the water offsite. So we treat it right there on site through our photobioreactors. And then once the water is treated, we resupply them with clean water, where instead of paying 20 cents per barrel, in this case, we'll be able to sell it for 10 cents per barrel. All right. You see how I've just quantified this? So this is the exercise you want to go through for your business. All right. Quantifying the value proposition. This is it. So again, as a recap of this step, all right, it's a 4-step process. 1, you put together your customer profile from all the research that you've done. Step number 2, you create a map of all that value, make sure it matches your customer profile. Step number 3, you take all of that into a value proposition statement. And then once you have that statement, finally, step number 4 is to quantify here. Step number 4 is to quantify your value proposition. Okay, so there you have it. Simple enough, right? All right, folks. So I'm going to end up here for today. Let me do this. Let me get out of this. Okay. Yeah, so there we have it. Simple enough. If you have any question, as I said at the beginning, all right, don't hesitate to send your comments, send an email. All right, this is designed to help you transform any idea that you have into a business. All right, if you're not sure on how to do it, follow this framework. At the end of these 24 steps, you'll be able to turn that idea into a business. But again, in the meantime, shoot your emails, send your comments. I'll be more than happy to answer those if you need to. Let me reassure you once again that these steps work. You see, this business school I went through, drill this into me. For a whole semester, we did the theory through a class that was called the New Enterprise class. And then the following semester, we did the New Enterprise Lab, where we turned these ideas into a real business. That was the goal. So I understand business school can be cost prohibitive for many, or you may just not have the time to spend 2 years going to business school trying to get an MBA or something. And I'm not saying this is an MBA, absolutely not. All right, but by no means. Nevertheless, we can take some of the knowledge and bring it to you for free, and then hoping that it can really add value to you. Because I'm convinced that entrepreneurship, again, is a fantastic tool with regards to eliminating the wealth gap that we have in our communities. But to take advantage of those avenues and those tools, there's certain skill sets you need to have, right? I don't have all the skill set, absolutely not, but I'll do my best to bring you some of the skill set that I learned and just put it on the platform. But also, if you haven't done so, I really urge you to subscribe to the channel. Only takes a second. Click on the subscribe button, become part of this platform so that we can grow together as a community, right? It's all about growing each other. As I always say, this platform is not about blaming or accusing. We're way past that, all right? If all we do is blame and complain and accusing and so on, we'll never go anywhere. It's about proposing, offering solutions so that together we can build our communities and build the global PAC. All right, so subscribe. Only takes a second. If you think that somebody else in your network can benefit from this content, just share. It's very easy. Click on share, send it to people in your network, and it allows our community to grow. If you're already part of this platform and you've already subscribed, thank you very much for your support. Without you, I cannot do it, but with you, we will meet all the goals we set for ourselves for 2025 and beyond. On that note, I will end up here. Remember, we are a beautiful people. We are a strong people. We are a very special people. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise. Until next time, this was Tony Mfumu Simba Kwambamba Ngumbu. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Peace be with you. Asante sana, which means thank you very much in Swahili. And until next time, let's get to work. This was the Business Pack. Thank you very much.